Stories of men who've seen a motherland they've dared to leave, a dream on the horizon to chase. A mother's hands that carefully weave a new life from her make-believe. A city with a hope and warm embrace. Ireland to Liverpool, generations hand in hand across the sea. Home's where the heart is, beating strong for all to hear. Welcome as we bring language, dance and songs to sing, to celebrate a fondness of our past. The future is for us to hold and cherish all the stories told. Each chapter penned a longing to surpass. Ireland to Liverpool, generations hand in hand across the sea. Home's where the heart is, beating strong for all to hear. To Liverpool, generations hand in hand across the sea. Home's where the heart is, beating strong for all to hear. Ireland to Liverpool, generations hand in hand across the sea. Home's where the heart is, beating strong for all to hear.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Nice to see you all. We're still actually waiting on about half of our guests today, so I was just trying to give us a decent window so that we weren't going to have to keep on starting introductions, but we may just have to do that. I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. This is just to let you know that we are recording. We would love to be able to see you so that we can wave and interact to make sure that we can see your points. But if you would prefer not to be captured, do feel free to have your camera off, contact us via the chat. And leave it at that if that's how you're more comfortable. I'm hoping that the recording will be subtitled and ready to go out on our website before the end of the week. So that's really great for other people who want to catch up on what we're doing here. It's great to see that so many people are interested in what the Cultural Connectedness Network is trying to do. And we've already got about 30 members, which is fantastic, but I do realise that not everyone can make every meeting. Just to give you a little overview of the sort of running order of today, I'm going to give you a bit of an update on the membership, and after that we'll do introductions and some work sharing, followed by an update on our ongoing work, then what we'd like the network to do next, and who and how we should set agendas for the future. Then we'll look at any other business, but I wanted to just double check if anybody knows of any other business now. If so, could you just raise your hand for me? No? None yet, that's fine. If anything does strike you, can you hold it ready for any other business at the end? And then I'll do a little bit of a wrap up. Does that sound okay with everyone? Nods, be great. That's great, thank you very much. So I'm just going to admit the next batch of people in, so bear with me. Just wait for them all to come in. So for the people that have just been admitted, I've just done an overview of the agenda, but I'm going to screen share that in a moment anyway. So what I'm going to do now is just give a little bit of an update on the membership. So we've got 30 members registered now, which is excellent for only meeting 3. I think that's really exciting, and I think it shows that there is an interest in connecting Irish and Northern Irish artists and creatives with organisations that use their services and commission their work. So I think there's a really nice connection to be made there. We've got representatives from the Irish Embassy, from cultural organisations, independent artists. So there's a really great conversation to be had across creative structures here, I think. We have got apologies today from Jerry Maguire, who's running the Irish Film Festival London, from Paula Mccloskey, who's the director of Kibosh Theatre, Nick Kelly, an independent filmmaker, Gary Dunn, who's the director over at the London Irish Centre, and sadly for us, because we'd hoped for an update from Irish in Britain on the APPG question, Rory Cullen, but I have got some information to update on that shortly. So, I think you've probably already heard enough from me for now. What I'd really like to do is pass to the individuals in the network to say who you are, who you represent, and the discipline that you're from, but also themes that you engage in most often and what you'd like to hear from the network. So I'm going to pass to Fiona Martin first, and when you've given yours, could you pick somebody who hasn't spoken yet to add to the conversation here? Thanks, Fiona.
Hi, I'm Fiona Martin from the Luton Irish Forum. I'm the Youth and Heritage Officer and I head up majority of our cultural activities. I specialise in engaging second and third generation Irish and looking at how to engage more young people because we've got a wealth of older people. Just trying to make some more connections and meet some new people and share some artists and ideas. I'm going to pass to Jean.
Hi, I'm Jean Maskel. I'm an independent artist, writer and ceramicist. I tend to work on areas around women, Irish history, social justice, and Liverpool generally. And I'm looking to get more involved in networks, I think, and try and help set up networks between Liverpool and Ireland, particularly Wexford. Wexford is the main area that I tend to work in. I'll pass to Mick Hannigan.
Hi there, my first meeting, so thank you for the invitation. And my wife...
Well, Mick, we've lost your sound. Could you say that again, please? I think we've lost Mick. So I'm going to, we'll pause Mick for a moment and come back to him. Declan O'Donnell.
Hello, everybody. And Emma, thanks for the invitation to this. I'm Declan O'Donnell, and I'm a senior lecturer in English literature and cultural history at Liverpool John Moores University, where I'm also a British Academy research fellow. I've just written a new book about Oscar Wilde and is interested in support for radical political causes, including Fenianism, Irish Fenianism. radical socialism and anarchism, and I'm writing another book that's an extension of that project. At the minute, it looks at Wilde's involvement in and interest in these causes against the broader political background of the 1880s and 1890s. So I've done a fair bit of work on Wilde, and I'm very interested in locating it within the broader, I suppose, the broader cultural sphere as well. And I think that his work, and I think this is how we should approach all periods and moments, really, in a productive way, is to really think about the parallels between the causes that Wilde was interested in and during his own moment, and really the relevance for us today as well. And hopefully I can bring something to this ongoing project with the Liverpool Irish Festival. I've given a talk with the festival on Robert Tressel before, and wrote a piece on Wilde. So I've some ideas for just for things moving forward, I suppose, but we can discuss all of our ideas as we proceed today. So it's nice to meet everyone.
Who do you pick to go next, Declan?
All right, I just randomly, I was out just making a cup of tea, so rather cheekily, so I'm not too sure if someone's spoken already. Siobhan Macaulay's beside me there on the screen. Siobhan, you okay to speak next?
Yeah, that's grand. My name's Siobhan, and I am on the board of the festival, but I'm also here to represent Conor na Gaeilge Léirfeil, which is our branch of the Irish Speaking Society in Liverpool. So we, at the moment, are kind of getting ourselves a bit more organised than we have been in the past. And so I'm here to kind of just say hello to everybody, put ourselves forward for just becoming part of the network. And our main aim, obviously, is to promote the Irish language in Liverpool and the use of the Irish language in Liverpool. So we're getting ourselves organised to do that properly from here on out.
Thanks so much, Siobhan. Mick, I'm going to pass back to you. We lost you for a moment there. I'm ever so sorry.
Okay, thank you. My Wi-Fi is unstable at the moment, so I apologise. Quickly, I've had very good experiences with the Liverpool Irish Festival, working with John and with Emma, and I found those experiences very rewarding. I work with the Indie Cork Film Festival in Ireland, and we've provided some programming. Parallel to that, some of my colleagues in Indie Cork and myself have established a Greenway Film Agency. So if people are interested in film for your events, we're very happy to collaborate. And of course, with COVID, there are physical events, but also online events. And I'll give very briefly one other reason why I'm very happy to be here. And I don't wish to upend the apple cart, but I will express it. I've been disturbed in recent weeks and months about what I see, or what I've experienced as almost an incipient xenophobia from Irish people towards British people. And I find it distressing and sad and totally regressive. So within that context, I'm hugely supportive of cultural exchange and dialogue and conversation and exchanging art forms. So I'm very happy to be here, Emma. Thanks for the invitation.
Thanks, Mick. I'm just going to select somebody at random. Kelly, would you go next, please?
Yep, sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Kelly O'Connor, and I'm the Head of Cultural Affairs at the Irish Embassy in London. Relatively new role. For those of you I haven't met yet, I hope to speak to you in due course. My role is across the Department of Foreign Affairs, but also the Department of Culture, Sports, Tourism, etc., etc. There's about 12 different things it covers now. So I sit kind of firmly between the Irish Embassy in London and Culture Ireland. So I'll have seen quite a lot of applications for funding coming in. My colleagues here are across the Emigrant Support Programme. So my role really is to try and bridge a gap that may have that they see there could have been a strengthened bridge between those two departments and the work that we do to support Irish arts and culture here in Great Britain. So yeah, I've only been here since December, so I think with St. Bridget's Day and St. Patrick's Day coming quite close to the beginning of my tenure, I've not had a huge amount of time to reach out to the community, so I'm looking forward to doing that a little bit more in the coming months. It's lovely to meet you all, and thanks again, Emma, for having me along.
We're absolutely delighted, Kelly. Doug Devaney, would you go next, please?
Hello there. Yeah, hello. Oh, yeah, well, I'll wave and everything. Hello, yeah, my name's Doug Devaney. Can you hear me properly? Oh, lovely. I'm the chief cook and bottle washer for a project called the Plastic Podcasts, which is a series of interviews with members of the Irish diaspora, whether first generation, second generation, or third generation, predominantly second and third. I cover what I suppose is a mix of journalism and theatre, in as much as not only am I looking to archive the stories of members of the diaspora, but also looking to present them in a form that tries to tell the story of the diaspora, certainly over the course of the last 70, 80 years, and then who knows, maybe even more, in a way that I can engage with people either as a live event or as a Zoom event. So that's essentially where I come from, really, I suppose, which is to really engage in the story of Irishness in Britain and so forth. I suppose that's it.
Who'd you pick?
Oh, dear God. Yeah, this is like Deal or No Deal. All right, John Chandler, can you open your box, please?
You're still on mute, John.
Sorry, I'm working on my iPad and it's an unfamiliar environment. It doesn't work terribly well. I'm John Chandler. I'm the chair of the Liverpool Irish Festival. I don't think I need to say over much about us, particularly given that Emma and Fiona are here also on the festival's behalf, and for all I know, there may be others as well. I just think the thing that strikes me is how different the environment is today from 2003 when I started the festival in Liverpool. And at that stage of the game, it was such a completely different environment. I think it felt like there was just Liverpool and Des, who I think is here somewhere in Leeds, and Karen in Ryan at the returned Camden Town Festival, trying to plough our what seemed like quite lonely furrows at the time. And thankfully, the world has changed, the scene has changed, and I think it's just brilliant that people are coming together in this sort of platform to continue to drive things forward and go up another gear. So without further ado, I'm happy to hand over to Des if he is around.
But thanks, John. Emma, for some reason I haven't got my mugshot up, so apologies on that. I can't seem to get it live. So yeah, as I say, Emma, thanks for inviting us along today, and a few sort of familiar faces and a few people that I've known for many years. A couple of fellow traditional Irish musicians in there. I'm looking at Patrick Morris and Terry Coyne, and anybody else that might be in there. Very briefly, I work with the Irish Arts Foundation up in Leeds. We're registered charity doing various projects throughout the year. Our main two will be the Leeds Gathering Festival in November, and the project which we've run for quite a number of years called Irish History Month, which we're on with at the moment. We're trying not to have ownership, and I've dropped Kelly an email a while ago about that. Well, she's been up to her neck in various other projects, so that's one that's sort of in progress. So basically, rather than going on a sort of ego trip for our own organisation, just a little bit about what's been going on in Leeds. We've all the community groups in Leeds, probably for the first time in a while. It's not that we've not been speaking to each other, but we're actually doing various things proactive in the community, just to try and make things as good as they can be in the current environment, more on a welfare basis than anything else, without things like radio programs and various crack packs and drop-offs for the Irish community, very similar to what other groups are doing. But I think I'm just moving on slightly, Emma, I'm looking at a forum like this gives, I think we're sort of often we feel as though we're just working in isolation. So I think having an initiative like this as a specifically culturally based sort of gives us a chance to sort of get to know one another, and basically throw some ideas, not so much from obviously from an artistic point of view, but from the point of view of equally organisations exchanging ideas and information. So that's about right, if that's fine. And thanks again for inviting us along, Emma.
Who'd you pick, Deb?
I'm going to pick Terry Coyne. Terry, how are you doing?
I'm brilliant, thanks, mate. It's been a while, but we've had some very great weekends and crack together over the years. Yeah, good to hear. Good to hear from you. I'm glad I can't see you. I mean, I don't mean.
Good man, Terry. Yeah.
All right. My name is Terry Clark Coyne. Changed since Des calls me Terry Coyne by marriage a few years back. But anyway, I'm an independent musician at the moment. I'm working on a video series called Whistle Walks, and I did a documentary there for the Liverpool Irish Festival, the online festival, in 2020. And continuing that, I've got a new album due out, within a month or two, based upon that project. So that's my main piece of work at the moment. But I've been a former director, along with John, for many years in the Liverpool Irish Festival, and delighted to see the strength of the festival now, putting forward and bringing this group together, because regardless of what we all do individually, either as artists or our individual roles within organisations, it's definitely, for me, felt as if we all have worked almost in isolation for as long, well, since I've been involved in understanding what the difficulties are in arranging anything in this country to do with Irish events and arts. So I'll just say I'm absolutely overjoyed that this is growing, and the strength and the breadth and the quality of people who are on screen now, and sent their apologies. So thanks to all of you, and especially the organisation, for getting this together. I'll hand over to someone I don't know, Ruth Dillon.
Hi. Thanks, Terry. Yeah, my name's Ruth. Hello, Emma. Hello. And hello, everyone else. So I'm a creative practitioner, an artist, and an educator. And I'm third generation on both sides. And I've been attending the Irish Festival for as long as I can remember. So because of the Irish Festival, I changed, on the little card, it was years ago, I became Irish. Yeah, I became, I used to be European before that, but anyway. So I'm just interested in connecting with other people. I know we had the Irish Corridor, which Mary Cloak did at the Blue Coat some years ago, and there was a series of kind of interactions between artists and curators, a cultural corridor, and I'm interested in seeing what's going on. So I shall, Claudia, I'll send over to you. I hope pronunciation was okay.
Yeah, Clodagh, that's great. Thank you very much. Sorry, I had a bit of difficulty signing in. My laptop just crashed, so I do apologise. Yeah, thanks very much for the invite, Emma. I've worked with Emma on several projects. 2 years ago, I think, we did a wonderful project with the traveller women that we work with at Liverpool Irish Centre and Irish Community Care. We did a photography project, and it was amazing and really well received at the Irish Festival. My role is Health and Wellbeing Project Coordinator at Liverpool Irish Centre, and I try to improve the lives and health and wellbeing of Irish and Irish traveller communities in Liverpool. Since lockdown, I helped set up the CARA project along with Irish Community Care, which was an amazing response to COVID-19, helping our more vulnerable people. Going forward, I have set up all our activities online, so people still have something to do that can improve their health during lockdown. But as restrictions have eased and tightened again, we've sort of just moved things to suit the guidelines, really. But I'm really interested to hear what everyone else is doing, and I think this is a great idea, Emma, so well done, and thank you for setting up. And obviously I would love to work with other organisations, and most recently I have been working with Shuan regarding Conrad na Gaeilge, and we've sort of been doing a bit of PR for each other. So yeah, just if anyone would can think of any health and wellbeing links or get involved with some of the cultural stuff we do at the Irish Centre, then I'd love to hear. So yeah, thanks for letting me be a part of it, Emma.
So I'm going to choose on Claudia's behalf and go to Paula Mccloskey, please.
Hi everyone, thanks Emma, and yeah, it's been great to connect with you and especially to be here. I'm already quite emotional about hearing about everybody. It feels quite often it's quite isolating doing some of the work. So yeah, my name is Paula Mccloskey. I'm artistic researcher at University of Derby, but I'm an artist as well. So I've been working on for a number of years. I do live art, site responsive art, audiovisual art, and work on art and science collaborations. And I got in touch with Emma about Ella project, which I've been working on for a number of years, which is situated on the border in Ireland. It's kind of like it starts from my background, which I was, I'm Irish, and my dad's Irish Catholic, my mum's Irish Protestant from Ballyshannon, which is a border town. And in the 70s, we moved back and forth. Lived in first few years in Ireland, then lived in England for 10 years, then moved to Northern Ireland in Enniskillen, and then I moved back to England. So this work came from many years later, just trying to explore the border before Brexit and before all these other the interests over the last few years, and it takes the form of a site-specific performance where I take on this character of Ella. And we fictionise the border, so it works with lots of different aspects, but then I make short films. And this has had had lots of interest in the world of academia, and over the next year, because of the centenary of partition, working on different events with different organisations and galleries about exploring this and this question. I think somebody's already mentioned about the shifting nature of the Irish question, or the relations to the British-Irish relationship, especially as an artist over here now. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the concerns I'm interested in. I also work with other collaborations with artists and scientists in Ireland, so working on a big project in Galway with Macehead Atmospheric Centre with physicists looking at the politics of air. So I have this kind of relationship where I work in England, but work in Ireland on different projects. So yeah, so the interest in the border, but also climate change as well, and performance, and yeah, so that's me. So thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, Paula. Jennifer Bennett, please.
Hiya, can you all hear me? So my name's Jenny. I'm Culture, Sports and Heritage Officer at Birmingham Irish Association. And I also deal with a lot of their marketing there too. So prior to the pandemic, we were doing sort of a lot of our work was welfare, with a few cultural projects and events along the side. And obviously now, due to the COVID, these things have kind of changed, and we're looking to sort of look into the ways that we approach things, making it more accessible. Because of this, we've got a culture project going at the moment where it's intergenerational, bringing Irish music and language into schools across Birmingham, which has been great. Obviously alongside not alongside, that's the most important thing at the moment, but obviously making sure our community is managing well because of the COVID pandemic and such. But yeah, going forward, we want to improve our accessibility further and increase our range of offerings to the community, so that we can carry on being the sort of one stop in Birmingham for Irish care and culture. And then on here, I just thought that it would be great to, obviously it's a great thing to connect and help as much as possible with everyone else who's working along similar kind of lines. So I'm just trying to see who hasn't spoken.
Just drop the names of people who haven't spoken yet into the chat.
Oh, okay. Let me have a look. Okay, Julie? Would Julie like to speak?
I think that's me, isn't it? I'm really sorry about my appalling lighting. equally appalling technical connection. I hope you can hear me. And ironically, I work in disability arts, so I'm all about access. And this is the worst access I could have provided today. But I'm in between homes. I'm in a collapsing flat, so you just got to ride with it with me. I'm working on 2 eccentric pieces. They couldn't be more further apart, you know, than if you tried. But I'm working with a piece with Hassan Mohammed Ali of Dervish Productions, and we're working on a piece called White Pariahs, Quiet Rebels. I might have mentioned it last time we met, actually. I'm not sure how far along we got. We began gathering stories of white working class women who had crossed the colour line and fallen in love with and married men, and one woman we found along the way, i.e. fell in love with a woman she thought was a man, from the Windrush years until now. And really the start of the whole process was my family's court case, which began in Liverpool. And 5 years ago, we won the court case for Troy to remain. He's been in our family 19 years. They've got 4 kids together. The oldest kid's 16. But we couldn't prove they were in an enduring relationship because there's nobody in 3 generations, believe it or not, actually believed in marriage. So they weren't wed. Anyway, so we began with a contemporary story that came out of that immigration case. I have to say there's a happy ending to it because it went to the Royal Courts of Justice last October and we won. So White Pariahs, Quiet Rebels is from those working class women's testimonies. We've now brought it up to date in a kind of dystopian future is where we began a couple of years ago. But sadly, it's no longer dystopian future. We're actually living it now, you know. So I'll tell you more about that as we go along. But we've had to create a hybrid piece it's neither film nor theatre. I'm a theatre practitioner, essentially, and work in social justice. Began in Birkenhead, where I was born, and strongly attached to Liverpool still. I'm one of the patrons of Dada Festival, the Deaf and Disability Arts Festival there. But White Pariahs, Quiet Rebels has now become some kind of Zoom experience, an adventure and an experiment, because neither Hassan nor myself love computers or technology in any shape or form, but we've had to learn fast. So that's something we've been working on, and we've been now described as an exemplary piece of Zoom theatre. And my heart sinks when I hear that. It really does, because I don't want to stay here. I don't want to be here. But anyway, we do what we do. You know, I'm earning a living. You got to butter your bread. And the other piece I'm making, which is completely different, is just bonkers, really. But it's come out of lockdown lunacy, because I spent most of the time on my own, do you know what I mean? Apart from these little, I have to say, it's lovely to see you. We're in my bedroom and it's all consensual. But you do look like my grandmother's darned, you know, the duvet cover. And each one of you now embraces one of those little embroidered squares. So I love you all. Welcome home. So yes, the other piece I'm making is called Single White Faux Male, because I've been a tomboy and a butch dyke all of my life. And some people still find that hard to handle. Well, you know, tough tits, we're here, get over it. But Single White Faux Male, just very playfully, because I find myself getting obsessed with other people's backdrops and living homes and embroidered squares. When I'm staring into your rooms, I think, I should be there. That's my house. Oh, I could be there. I could live that life. That's my life. So I'm playing with that in a comedy piece, which we hope eventually will go on stage with a few bits of embroidered squares in the backdrop. That's where I'm at. Thanks for having me.
Thanks ever so much, Julie. Ray, can we come to you, please?
Hiya, thanks a lot for asking us along. And yeah, I'm Ray Rooney. I'm I don't know, a songwriter, I guess, and writer mostly, bit of a musician. And I've been involved in writing about the Irish community historically, really, through the Liverpool Ceilidh Band, obviously links with Terry there. And so I've been involved in a few things around the Irish community. I don't think I'm quite interested in the whole idea of networking and linking in about things. I'm involved in another piece of work at the moment, which is also about the Irish community in a different way. So just like to be involved. Very fascinated about everyone's story. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. That was a technical thing as well. And my background isn't very good either, but I've no excuse for that. But
thanks ever so much, Ray. Jerry, can we come to you, please?
Hi there. Jerry Malumbi, yeah, 25 years with Tuskegee in Irish theatre and concert productions, producing plays and concerts throughout the UK. Currently, I'm retired, but I'm chair of the Nottingham St. Patrick's Day Festival, and I write for the Irish Post on a regular basis. Speaking of Nottingham, a very quick note to Declan about Oscar Wilde. The door of his cell in Reading Jail is in the possession of the National Gallery of Justice here in Nottingham, and they're always keen to do things around Oscar Wilde. We've done festivals with them before. That's worth mentioning. So it's the door of his cell when he was at Her Majesty's pleasure, which is probably a good title for an Oscar Wilde play. I'm doing some gardening today, so hence the cap. And I'm also involved passionately with the campaign for votes for the Irish abroad in the pending referendum. Thank you.
I can't see him. It looks like Patrick's had to go. Has anybody not spoken? Please wave furiously. No, I think we've covered everybody. I know that that's an awful lot to take in all at once, but it really is part of what makes this network important, I think, that we hear each other's themes and figure out where there might be crossovers or collaborations. And I'd really encourage you to use the chat now to start saying, you pick up on similar themes to me, maybe we could have a little talk offline, swapping details. Just to backfill a little bit, our themes for this year are exchange, and we have a series of sort of through runs that link our festivals together that include Invisible Women, the Liverpool relationship with the Irish famine, family, unusual spaces, and dual heritage lives and Irishness. So if you're working in any of those sorts of areas or have product services that link into those, please do contact me directly. So that was really impressive. It's really great to hear that so much is happening despite really mad circumstances. And while I recognise that we may not like all of that, it is wonderful to see that creativity prevails irregardless. So well done, everyone. I wanted to let you know a little bit about what sort of happened since the last session, since we drew up that white paper and the work that Irish and Britain and I have been doing on behalf of the network, which Rory was supposed to be here to help me sort of share with you. In that white paper, we put together a kind of tear out page that Irish and Britain were going to work on taking to their on-island APPG. So an APPG, just to remind myself and anybody that doesn't know, is an all-party parliamentary group. And Irish and Britain, as lobbyists for all of us, have access to that all-party parliamentary group. But it is a voluntary group of cross-party MPs. It doesn't have a massive remit to make change, but what we want it to do is try and advocate on behalf of Irish and Northern Irish artists and creatives, because we have found through the research that we have done and the personal experiences of many of us that Irish work and Northern Irish work in England particularly hasn't been well funded. So we gave Irish and Britain a set of about 6 questions to ask on our behalf at that APPG. And what Irish and Britain have basically said is, they can't ask all of those questions. Could we distill it further? So I've done some work on that, and I've distilled our question to almost the following, but bear with me because I just need to select the other screen. This is what I have distilled it to. I wonder if you can if you can read that over for me and let me know whether or not you think it gets to the root of what we need to ask. It's a bit of a tricky one because we've got lots of questions around how Irishness is measured, how it's understood by funders, how it's qualified. All of those are issues of representation that we also want to raise. So trying to find a question that leads us into those areas, I think has been an important, or is an important route to try and take. So I'm interested in feedback on whether you think this distills what we came up with in our previous meetings, or learning what you've learned today, whether or not you think it distills a decent enough question to put forward. Are there any thoughts on that yet? It's tricky, I know, because there's so much to sort of go over and it comes out of quite a large body of work. Is anybody surprised to know that Arts Council underfunds Irish work by 45%?
Hi, Emma. I'm not surprised, but would you say that in asking them to ensure practice is A and B, resourced and administered against, do you think it may be prudent to ask for more tangible commitments?
Well, that is kind of what I was trying to make the point with Irish in Britain, and what I feel I was met with was there are only so many questions we can ask. So in putting this one forward, I'm sort of trying to imbue it with all of those other ones, because I think that then becomes something that's measurable. When you say, can you make sure it's resourced more representatively, we've got to be able to qualify that. And if we say it's going to be administered against these 3 agreements, we've got to be able to qualify that. But it isn't being presently, and I can't ask them as separate questions.
Thank you. Yeah, it does answer my question.
Reasonably enough. Any other thoughts on this?
Just a thought whether the question should be resourced more representatively. Should it be evaluated more representatively?
I think that's a really good point.
Because it's in the initial evaluation where we're losing out, because we're not seen as a minority culture in the first place.
Yeah, Emma, have they ever given any feedback as to why it's so underfunded, or what is the reasoning? And as Fiona mentioned, White Irish is within the BME groups. It's just mad that, it's so badly underfunded. 45% is massive. It'd be interesting to hear what their thoughts on it are and why that's happening.
Agreed. I'm just going to stop the sharing for a moment so that I can see you better. No, they haven't answered that, but in all honesty, I don't know if they've been asked fully. So for those that don't know, the root of this meeting came out of the fact that we, Liverpool Irish Festival, made an approach to ACE to say, we think there is an issue with Irish work being recognised for its protected characteristics. And they essentially said, yes, that is an issue, you're right. There have been instances in your applications where these things have been conflations of white Irish, white British, Britishness, etc. And we wondered if other people had felt and experienced that, because when we spoke to some of our peers, they went, oh yeah, no, we totally recognise that. So as a result of this network, we went away and did some comparative work on all of the applications that have been granted over the last 10 to 12 years under the different funding rounds that we've come through for NPO and for grants. We've totaled all of those and taken out the ones that have Irish, Ireland, Era, Celtic, Celt, and Gaelic in their titles, to try and find as many as we can within the portfolio of work they have funded. And then the maths breakdown outside of that sort of shows us that the Irish funded work compared to the total funded work receives a lot less on average, and that is where we get the 45% figure from. So I don't know that they know that. I also don't know that you would say that Arts Council fund work representationally that way. So I don't know if they'd say, well, 3% of Britain is a particular ethnicity, therefore 3% of our funding should go to that group. That isn't how that works. So I don't think we can say that compared to, for instance, Black theatre, Irish theatre isn't funded in the same way. I can only look at more general stats on that, but that's also partly because of how they do or don't qualify Irish work within that. So it all becomes part of the issue, in the same way that white hate crime isn't split down into anything other than white, so we can't actually see what anti-Irishness is if it's against white Irish, and it may not be, because I'm recognising that not all Irish people are white. So, you know, looking at all of those sorts of permeations becomes quite difficult, but more difficult because they're not looked at all at sort of strategic level nationally. So that's part of where this group came from, that we're searching for that advocacy and searching to try and get decision makers and thought leaders to go, oh, we need to think about this a bit differently. So trying to crystallize these things down so that we can ask a really important question that they can take away, that then opens this umbrella effect of, oh, we need to think about that, oh, we need to think about this, is kind of where we are, which is how we've got down. It is ridiculous that we've taken a page of questions, it's distilled into this one thing that we can try and pipeline to these advocates and change leaders to take away. So it's whether or not we think I've done a decent enough job at that and we should just let IIB run with it now and just start trying to do that work. And for us as a network to understand that we have got a representational voice to hold and start using more and more, that we've got it now that we've got a little bit of this evidence. This is also how the network ended up being England related in terms of its research, because that's how the funding breakdown works. So it may be different in Scotland, it may be different in Wales, I'm sure it's different in Northern Ireland. But actually us working in a connected way as people working with or as Irish practitioners, Northern Irish creatives and commissioners and cultural organisations felt like a really important thing to start bridging these gaps and understanding what artists on the front line need and what organisations can do to help them using this access to change makers. It all sounds like such a lot of flim-flam in a way, but I think it's really important that we're genuinely trying to bridge those gaps and make those arguments heard. Are there any comments on that?
I don't know whether this is helpful, Emma, but you may have been connected with Chris Ledger from Bounce Festival in Belfast. Look, it's pointless writing down her contact now because sadly she died of COVID. May she rest. But she did some brilliant research before she died. Her research was based on the fact that she used to be an officer for the Arts Council of the North of Ireland. We called ACME, all over us like a rash. But she did a breakdown of the amount of funds that were going from the arts, from DCMS into the North of Ireland. And her breakdown was about how much of that funding went to arts projects in Belfast and Derry as well. She was trying to get funding at the time for Let Me Stay, which you might have seen at Dardar Festival, I don't know. But we could not get funding from Arts Council England. They were not putting funds into the North of Ireland for whatever reason. But she did some stats, and her stats must be available. She set up a university before she died called University of Atypical, which has now been going 5 years. And those statistics must be available behind the scenes there.
Do you know anyone there that might be able to get those to us, Julie?
Yes, I do actually. What's her name now?
Could I ask you to drop it
Enda Murphy, yes. I'll make a note to myself.
I'll follow it up because that's really useful. And the more evidence we've got, the more routes in we can sort of take to say, why isn't this happening?
And even now, if you're doing a tour in theatre, or actually you might be, if you're doing a tour in music or whatever else in the arts, you're obliged, if you're going for Arts Council England funding, you're obliged to cover 3 regions, but they will not fund the north of Ireland.
That's on a touring grant, is it?
Yeah. So what's that about?
I think that's...
You can't have your green field and eat it, you know?
But I've experienced the same with Lottery Heritage, and the answer is, and a few actually other UK funds, and the answer is Northern Ireland has their own money. So they can't, so it's their policy that we can't do things in Northern Ireland or commission from Northern Ireland. It's like it's ring fence. And I've brought up the question, it's like, but if you give me UK money, why is Northern Ireland not included in that?
Yeah, it's because of the devolved powers and there's the fact that it's taxpayers' money limits in that area. However, it shouldn't prevent you from going to those areas. All the core costs needed to help you go there. It's just it won't fund the live work in that area because it should be being bought in.
Emma, can I just chip in there? I think collectively, the Irish in Britain, whether it be current or historic with the Federation of Irish Societies, I don't think we made a case to Arts Council England collectively, and this may be the start of some kind of network and a combined force. We seem to have looked towards ESP funding, local authority funding, maybe Culture Ireland, but the Arts Council, if we haven't asked and made our case, they won't know what our needs are.
Absolutely not, and that's why it's important that if we're thinking about distilling our questions down, that we're going in the right direction so that we can all advocate in a similar way, in my view. But you're absolutely right, if we don't make a case, they can't know it. Completely. So I think we are still understanding what our case is, and these conversations of how we experience things, what the limitations are really helpful. So, you know, one of the conversations that we had, I think it might have been in the first or second session, was about the fact that if you were an artist working independently and you had a studio share, you hadn't got any access to any business rate support, for instance. So it was like a glaring hole that we then as organisations understood we needed to advocate for better on behalf of artists. Because although we were able to access it, they couldn't. So this understanding of how to make cases and where we can take them, I think is really important. And, you know, Arts Council shouldn't be the only door that we're knocking on. There are things around British Council that I think we still need to look at. The Culture Ireland Arts Council dynamic. You know, is Arts Council the right body to be looking after all of this work? I think these are all questions for our sector to consider. And by our sector, I guess what I mean is looking at Irish representation and creativity and how we bridge the gap between Ireland, Northern Ireland and us.
Yeah, I think
a flag wave for one another. Sorry, was that Fiona?
Yeah, sorry.
Go on.
Yeah, no, I think I agree, because it isn't just the Arts Council. It seems to be a trend in all UK funders. I think it's just an overall attitude or view of what Irish culture is and what does that mean for Irish in Britain, because we're not seen as a minority culture, and they don't, especially when you turn up with an English accent, they don't understand why this is important and as important as other communities as well. So it's overall attitude change, I think, is needed.
And this was something that came out of the first meeting as well, that it's not a competition for oppression. We're not suggesting for a moment that, you know, that there aren't other difficulties. This isn't an all lives matter versus Black Lives Matter situation at all, but it is saying that there are issues of saying all Irish are white, they're not, that all white people are okay, they're not. And actually there can be a dual isolation in being isolated because you're Irish, but also assumed to be the same as everybody else. There's a sort of Venn that you fall into then, which is like a double isolator. So then thinking about how that's impacted the system, it's sort of how we've ended up here and talking these things through. So I think it's really important. And that we're starting to think those things through, so that actually when we're in our equality and diversity and inclusion sessions, we can be raising these more effectively and more thoughtfully. It's really good to have these conversation's going. So I'm going to come back to that APPG question. I'm just going to put it back on the screen for a moment. Is it something we can just run with for now? It is not going to be perfect because actually the system of APPGs isn't. But does it give us a start?
Yeah, I think so.
We're sort of happy that that's what we're putting forward as this collective. Yep. I'm going to take that as a good one then, and I will let Rory know that when they next meet the APPG, we would like them to table that question, and we would like feedback in this group, please.
Emma, can I just ask a question or make a suggestion? On the line saying it's underfunded, it might be useful to just have a little asterisk that explains exactly what you mean by that, because it's not something necessarily that everybody would be aware of how you came to that figure or what exactly that means.
Yeah, that is in the paper that supports all of this work that the IIB have got, but you're absolutely right, and we'll make a clearer link to that.
Cool. I was going to say that it's probably what you're referring to, the other work that's gone into it, but the distinction between being Irish artists or creative or organisations and the work that you make is it's about the work that you make, not about your identity as being Irish. Is that the distinction you're making in it? So, you know, when you're looking at that 45%, and it's not about the identity of the Irish, it's about the identity of the artist or the organisation.
It's a combination of those things, Paula, because Arts Council don't ask you to qualify it in that way. So at the moment, they're not registering Irish as separate from British Irish or white Irish, black Irish. They're not making those distinctions. So we've only taken that information from the titles of work they have supported.
But I think that's important though, because it's something about which I know, especially with the stuff working around the border, because it's still seen as really contentious if you don't address it in a certain way. And a lot of the discussions we have with people are around how do you frame it, you know, who's your audience for a start, and how are you framing it to different funders and what kind of language that you use. So the politics around it is still really difficult to make, in terms of funding, and they're not shifted, and it changes. People saying how dynamic these questions are, and how over the last few years they've changed since a lot. So it is something. There's, like you say, the kind of refining down about how if a work is about something to do with Irishness, then if that's been treated a different way, or is it about artists who are making work about something that isn't about their identity or about their Irishness, and about if that's then being a question, and so I think that's that distinction is important, I guess, because some of the work I make is not about it's all, you know, kind of is, but it is not explicitly about Ireland or Irishness or anything.
I'm just going to say I need to leave because I'm teaching. The chat's disabled, otherwise I'd have popped some information in there, but I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I've got to go too as well. Sorry, guys.
Thank you so much, Emma, for this. I really appreciate your time.
Really appreciate yours. Thanks, Ruth. I don't know how the chat's disabled.
It just says over on my side, chat disabled. Okay, but it's okay anyway. All right.
All right. Oh, well, we'll be in touch anyway, Ruth. Thank you.
Thanks.
Is anybody else not able to type into the chat?
Yeah, it's disabled.
Well, I don't know why that is. I need to figure that out. Okay, sorry about that. I will figure it out before the end of this session. The next question. So the next thing that I had down was just to also say that I have created a Cultural Connectedness Exchange Network page. At the moment, it is on our website, and it can be seen here. It is in its very early rudimentary stages. and I am very open to having new information to put on there. And we will make more of it on the website when I've got a bit more content and we know a bit more as we move forward how we want to do it. But I just wanted to let you know we are beginning those toolkits that we discussed in the earlier sessions. I guess what I'd like to know now is where we want this network to go next. We will take that work with the APPG forward. I will continue to expand on the toolkits, and when I can get the chat working, I would love you all to send me any information you have that you would like to see in there. But yeah, are there any sort of immediate thoughts on where you would like to see this go next? Anyone?
Could you just say?
I was just wondering. Actually, I'm backtracking slightly. You know about the APPG. Are there concrete examples within that give an example of how work is suffering? You know, kind of case studies, I suppose, in a way. I'm just thinking
we would need them
in a different way.
You need to see those in a way. You know, our own experience was our case study in raising that with Arts Council, finding what that process was. You know, we're still 18 months on waiting for our meeting with Arts Council to talk to our data analysts about why this is happening and how they're going to approach it and how they're going to train their team. Post-COVID, we haven't had those conversations, but equally they weren't, I don't know how much quicker and more forthcoming they would have been without it. So it's difficult to know, really.
Just a thought, yeah.
I mean, if people have got experiences they are willing to send, I would absolutely compile those into this report, that, you know, into that white paper, and we would rejig that to show that this is a body of evidence that tells our story and our experience.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, anyone, on where we'd like to see this go next?
Emma,
yeah.
Do you just want to summarise what the toolkits are, just for the new people? So just in case there's stuff in there which is going to do what we want it to do anyway.
So there's, sorry, yes. In the first sessions, things that independent artists asked for specifically were quick lists to funders, quick lists to commissioners and cultural organisations in the country. Steve, do you remember any of the other ones? They wanted better connectivity with digital. Haven't got there yet, but that's partly as digital expands and we understand where training and skills updating will be. So they will come. And also, they wanted active links made between Irish and Northern Irish artists, commissioners, funders, and their tools. So it was quite broad, and I am sort of trying to put some of those things in place with sort of quick wins on lists of funders that fund in England, or Irish funders that fund Irish work that come to England. And all of those things in between, but they are quick lists at the minute. I don't think there are quick wins, and there needs to be some resourcing and investment of time and energy in those. So we as a network need to start generating that information, I guess, and sharing. That's what we're here for. Can anybody tell me how to re-enable chat? Does anybody know? I don't want us to miss out because of my inexperience. Okay, none of us know. That makes me feel a bit better, but I'm saddened that I can't get you all swapping messages. Okay. So are there any thoughts on toolkits, on information, on what we'd like to see the network do next?
Hi, I'm back in again. I mean, I wait to be corrected, but I think this is the only network for Irish culture, arts people in the UK. So frankly, this could be the start of something. Along, maybe us together doing some joint funding for events. I'm looking at Fiona down in Luton, and the small things like St. Patrick's Day in Nottingham, we had John McNichol, booked to be in the Market Square, and he was able to tell me, "Oh, good, I'll contact Luton." And there's that informal networking, and sometimes formal, which kind of justifies an artist coming to the UK because he or the band or the play will have 3 or 4 venues. And that's a bit ad hoc, but this would be a good network for that to be a bit more solid and creative.
Yeah, we've experienced getting artists over from Ireland. It's a lot more cost effective for them if we can also get them a booking in London, obviously nearest to us. But bigger artists would be, I think it's an attractive offer that we could actually do a tour through the UK when they're over. So that would be great. But I think that's when we can get back to that. But I think there's definitely, we've seen a lot more connectivity with things being digital. It'd be great. I think it'd be great for kind of a quick win, kind of the immediate, is to do a lot more networking about our digital events, how we could connect up maybe through programming, but also through actual technology and how that could work better. Also sharing information and trends on audiences. We found that engagement is very different in positive and negative ways. So it'd be good to see if there's if that's a trend in your region or something to do with what's happening online. It might give us an idea of what the future might look like, and also open up evidence for future funding.
I think that's a really good point, and I think particularly in a national network like this, those audience trends might be really different, but we might be able to learn from each other, and particularly around what works, what hasn't worked. I'm really keen to think about not a flash diary per se, but like a celebration diary of how we pass the baton around the country between festivals and activities and sort of big bodies of work, so that we can really start leading audiences around the country in this incredible sort of portfolio of work that Irish makers are developing. Terry, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, so it is connected to that, really. Quite an interesting thing was done by Mike McGoldrick and Des and John Chandler and etc. Many of you might know Mike McGoldrick, brilliant artist, and Mike and the trio with John Doyle and John McCluskey, they did a Christmas show, and they would normally do like a Christmas show, and I think it was set up to go around several town cities, big venues. And because it didn't happen, I think they were maybe coerced, but it went ahead, and they produced the show as obviously as a one-off show online. But it was marketed by asking people of the regions they would have been in. So say they were in Bolton, a theatre in Bolton, then they marketed and pushed that to the audience who would generally go to the folk, traditional, Celtic, whatever type audience they would market that through, and ask them to be the audience and buy tickets for the event of Bolton. And then they similarly did that for the other venues that they would have visited. So in a way, it was a good toe in the water to say, we want to sort of market this to a big audience so we can put our advertising maybe in the banners in the background and all this type of stuff. So it was owned a little bit by the area that the artist would have gone to, and the promoters there would promote the show, even if it's the same show that would go on to everyone else. And so it ran for something like 14 straight nights, and they pushed it to different audiences around the country, although they could have pushed it to every single audience all at the same time, just put on one concert. So I found it really interesting, and I think with one or two venues with different ways of organising, Mike contacted me and says, have you got any ideas about marketing this just to a big more audience, because some of them weren't selling as much, most of them sold out. So I actually blitzed it around the world to a lot of my audience from the Whistle Walks and different festivals I've been playing for online. So I actually pushed it for people in so many other places to come and watch it. And just what was being said then, you know, it's possible. You know, Jerry, you were saying about bringing an artist, and you know, you can bring an artist who's a high-profile artist. It costs you a lot of money, and we used to do it with the Camden Town Festival, and we'd sort of share an artist and share the costs and share the flights, and you know, just to make it happen so big an artist could come, and we happen to be, you know, timetable the activity around the festivals around the same time of the year. But would there be mileage in getting a significant piece of work or a significant artist or a play, and then looking at how the marketing strategy could be sold to market that to certain audiences in different places, or to all of our audiences in all of the places as one humongous online thing? And I know we will eventually get back to gigs, but you know, there's audiences in Australia and Asia and India and South America who are contacting me and watching my stuff. It's not, you know, it's not huge, but there are audiences out there who want to watch things. It doesn't just have to be our local audience who come to Hammersmith Irish Centre or Birmingham or Nottingham or whatever. So just throwing that in the mix for a bit of, you know, it's very techy, but actually the concept I thought was very interesting, and I'd like to explore it.
I think there's merit in it. I think there's also merit in people being able to say, actually, that isn't going to work for us in that time scale or in this, but you know, all power to it. I think that's got to be an offer, hasn't it? It's great.
Yeah.
So yes, I think that's
just following on from Terry's point there. I mean, I know recently the Druid Theatre did a play on YouTube, and it was broadcast live, and you bought your tickets. Admittedly, at the beginning of the play, they were halfway through each of their monologues, and the internet went down, and we were all told to go back to the bar and replenish, and we came back, and the play started from scratch. So, I mean, it can be done, but I mean, theatre companies like the Druid have a reputation of taking theatre through parish halls and over to the islands of Ireland, etc., making it accessible, taking theatre to people. And I'm sure I'd love to think that they might come to the UK, maybe to one of our festivals, along with playing at the Dunmar in London or the Barbican. They might come up to Liverpool Irish Centre or go to Luton and put on a classic John Millington Synge play, or even a British play, because they do Shakespeare and all that. And that would be great, and something I think they might be interested in. I'm sharing a dream, folks.
And I think as an extension of that, Jerry, it isn't only about what work we import, it's also thinking about how we export and how we export Irish work that's made here by our groups that actually can be celebrated elsewhere. So I think there's an import-export conversation to be had in a network like this as well. So import-export.
I think also sharing best practice for the practicality of technology. It's all people, I think hybrid events are kind of here to stay for a while, but some venues and some organisations are more ahead than others. So it's kind of sharing, just because I know the Luton Irish Forum is actually investing quite a lot in technology, so we can have good quality hybrid events, and we're working with our local cultural organisation to do that as well. So it's kind of, but it's all again kind of, at the moment it's learning through doing, so it's sharing a big best practice from the organisations who've been doing really great work so far. And then also, again, that could be where joint funding applications come in from, especially smaller groups who haven't got that money for technology upgrades, sharing resources, group investment funding, because you can have fantastic work, but if kind of the idea of that we may be using technology for a long while yet, it needs to be good quality as well for people to access.
Well, it's not going to go back, is it? That's the thing. Technology is only going to keep going forward, so we are going to need to keep an eye on that. Terry.
Hi, just a very short one. A very good example of that, Fiona. The artists across Ireland, many different types of artists, somewhere around about, maybe 9 months ago or something, were all offered £1,000 to put a bid in for £1,000 for doing a home concert. and there were many major artists got that bid, and it was just to. But I think it was Culture Island who put the money into it. I think for 40,000 or 40 different artists over a certain amount of, almost the same amount of days. Many of my friends all won the bids and put on basically a home concert with the sort of Zoom background, all the usual stuff. But all the tech was done by Culture Island with a tech team. So it was a tech team central who contacted the artist, a few days before, said, what have you got? What mics you got? Right, let's try it all out. And they did all the tech on the back burner. And then when it came to the artist presenting the quality piece of work, they were presenting their quality piece of work just like you would on a concert, on a stage. And the tech was taken care of. So, there are people in this forum possibly whose tech skills are way above most of us, the videographers and tech people, or there might be a forum big enough eventually to say, we want to hire in a tech team. So we can say, I've got a piece of work I want teching out to a wide audience, and I want it to be correct and right. And there's a team there we can call upon to do it. So it might be a mini business for an Irish, videography artist or a tech firm to come in and help support us and be part of this. So just thoughts anyway.
Very good.
Very quickly, if you go onto the Fiddler of London YouTube channel, they did their final. They had artists from Northern Ireland, from Australia, America, and the quality of the sound, I couldn't believe it. And was all done, they all recorded, a bit like what Terry was saying. There was somebody in charge of the quality. You can't have a fiddle contest with poor quality. And it was pure, and it's worth watching again on Fiddler of London YouTube.
Jerry, could you please pop a link for that in the chat if possible?
Yeah,
you have your finger up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably just adding my voice to the throng here, really, I suppose. But something that I'm doing in about 3 weeks' time is a Zoom presentation production thing based on the interviews that we did for the podcasts and the filmed extracts and things like that, and put together as a narrative. But we got Arts Council funding in order to do this, and also part of the funding was that I could get in somebody from a company called Splinter Faction, who worked with Secret Cinema on their Secret Sofa things, so that I could make sure that Zoom was properly used rather than it just being me in a back room and things like this. I suppose that apart from vaguely plugging my own work there, I suppose that the point that I'm making is that those skills are out there, and I think it's not beyond our wit to be able to try and either find or develop those skills ourselves, so that we're not constantly having to subcontract out to people at a couple of £1,000 expense each time. I think it's like this, like Fiona said, this the future's here to stay with regards to all this, and the sooner we kind of learn those skills, it might well be the better.
Can I jump in there actually, just off the back of what you've said, Doug? I was trying to think of, so Culture Ireland, obviously they've had to change the nature of their funding because nobody can travel. They've been very flexible, and I think some of you have probably benefited from that. I know I certainly did in my previous role at IFL, and they will continue to be so for the foreseeable future. In fact, I think they've seen that there's quite a lot of value to be had in a lot of these virtual concerts and virtual events, in reaching wider audiences, which is obviously a huge part of their specific remit, which is getting high quality Irish cultural content to a very wide audience. The different funders obviously have different focus. The ESP, for example, is primarily the Irish diaspora and people with Irish heritage, whereas Culture Ireland is sort of as wide as it can go. But just to pick up on what you were saying there about the project you're doing with, what are they called? Splinter, or who's helping you with it?
Splinter Faction.
Splinter Faction. I wonder, Emma, would it be of use for this kind of forum to provide a workshop in that kind of thing? Even just a short workshop that might help people to better light their rooms for a Zoom call, or how to record sound, recommend some fairly, reasonably priced mics, for example, or lighting rings and things, just the very basics that people might feel a little bit more confident. And it would help as well if they've done that training. When you're then applying for wider funding, you can say, look, I've done this training, I can do this. I wonder if that might be something that would be useful for people, and if so, that might be a joint application that could be done either on behalf of this forum or a group of members together.
Who are you thinking might fund that?
Well, Culture Ireland, as I say, they're really flexible with their funding at the moment, and what they want to see is high production value across the things that are being produced. And as Terry there said, they obviously did a great job with the series, which I think I saw that series, and that would have been done through that way of coaching the individual people as to what they would need to provide, which is great, and it's fantastic to see a service like that. But that was just, say, 45 people or whatever. So to be able to provide some kind of training in that for a wider group of people who might not, they might not win a pitch to be one of Culture Ireland's 45 top musicians or whatever, but they could still learn those skills and hopefully increase their viability then as a funded partner going forward.
I think it's a really good idea. Can you leave that one with me? I will go away and have a bit of a look at that.
Yeah, and I'm happy to have a chat with you offline about that as well, in any way that the embassy could support that kind of application. Again, I'm new, so I can't make promises along those lines. I'm still finding the corners and the edges. I do know obviously that the Emigrant Support Programme is our big funding body. There isn't just like a pool of money that I can dish out or anything like that. I would love that. But with Culture Ireland, because there are 4 calls a year, then there's a lot more flexibility then. So I'd be happy to support in any way I can.
That's great. I'm really mindful that we've set out for this to be about an hour and a half. We've only got about 7 minutes left. This forum is great, and we have decided that we will do this once every couple of months. And at the minute, I'm chair because it's just come through the festival and through that experience that we've already sort of gone over. Are we happy that it continues in this vein for a little bit while we find our feet? Are we happy that I set up and that we kind of just keep going with it for a little bit? I recognise it's not perfect and fully formed and that I don't know everything about chat, but we will get there if we sort of just keep looking at this. I think there's an awful lot of merit in what we're doing. The membership aspect of this is really important. So if you've booked to come today but aren't a member, I need you to fill in the form, because we don't only exist here. I think some of this trading best practice and asking questions of us has to happen by email and through that linkages. We can't just wait for once every 2 weeks. There aren't only 6 points in a year where we can have these earnest conversations. I think we ought to be raising things outside of the forum to bring in and discuss. So I just want to make sure that everybody who's here is signed up. If you have already signed up to the doodle, you don't need to do this form. I'm going to make sure that all of that is linked up, but I've done a better form now so that I can collect everything all together. So anybody signing up fresh should use that link that I put in the chat, please. And as we go forward, it means that we can take the conversations between the meetings that we have. But you're happy that it's been led by Liverpool Irish Festival for now. All of that is open to review in future. I'm not precious about it. It's just practicality driven at the minute. And if anybody desperately wants to chair an event, a meeting in future, just holler. I'm really happy to share. We didn't have any other business earlier. Has anything pricked that we've not touched on that you want us to look at? Looking at the screen. Can't see anybody waving. So I will subtitle all of this and get this back up. I'll also try and do a rundown of what I think we've said we want from what's next, and I will send that out to the membership. And any comments that you have on that, please do feel free to bring those back to me. Has anybody got anything pressing that they want to flag quickly before we go? A really great event you've got coming up, or a festival you know about? It's a quiet time of year now, isn't it, as we all recover post St Patrick's and St Bridget's.
Can I just jump in very quickly to say Culture Ireland's Shoida programme is still online for the next sort of 5 days, I think. Absolutely amazing programme, 5 days worth of content, and there's something in there for everybody. And similarly, the Embassy's virtual St Patrick's reception trad session is still available online as well. I'm happy to put those into the box there.
Thank you, please do. And what I'll do is when I send around the notes from the meeting, I will copy out the chat and make sure that you all get a copy of that as well. So the next meeting dates, ready for your calendar, are the 25th of May, the 20th of July, and as part of the Liverpool Irish Festival, the 26th of October. We've also got one in for December, but we can touch on that later. I'm about to sign off, so I'm going to say thank you to our funders for letting us do all of this and have you here. If you don't follow us on social networks at the moment, we're at LivIrishFest on all platforms. I'm really grateful that you were all here today and shared your time and knowledge with us. So thank you ever so much for being part of it. We will look forward to seeing you in May and to being in touch with everyone in between. Thank you ever so much. Take care. Stay safe. Thank you for vaccines.
Thanks, Emma.
Bye.
Thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Emma. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks very much. Take care.
Thanks, Doug. Julie, we probably ought to talk. Oh, she's gone. Thanks, Ray.
See you now. Cheers.
Take care.